So, hey everyone. For those who are watching this later, we don't have anyone yet, but you guys are welcome to come in. And we have a very special guest today. We have Lilian. And pronounce your last name for me.
Ledoux.
Ledoux.
Yeah,
Okay, nice. It's like French, right? Like a
it
French
is.
last name. Okay. Lilian Ledoux, and Lilian specializes in PR and especially PR for authors. And Lillian, you come from interesting space where you also specialize in building up confidence for authors, and I think that's really cool. But before we got so much time to explore this, so we had invited Lillian on today to explore what PR gets to do for authors, and so Lillian, take us back to give us your background. Like, how did you get started in PR? How did you get started in PR? And eventually, like, how did you come to specialize in PR for authors, especially?
Sure, yeah. I started my business actually as a freelancer in the copywriting and social media strategy space. So I was writing copy for companies that needed their websites done. They needed print collateral for trade shows. There was one client that specialized in selling bathroom cabinetry, so I wrote a bunch of stuff for their showrooms and stuff like that. And so I've always been in the business of helping entrepreneurs share their stories with the world in different ways. PR came about because I had quite a few entrepreneur clients that were like, "Hey, do you write media releases? Because I've got stuff going on. I've got this event. I really want to for people to know more about it." And
Mhm.
I got tired of telling people no. Like, "Hey, no, I don't know how to do that. I'm gonna have to send you off to somebody else."
Okay.
And yeah, so at the time, it was like, okay, I'm at a crossroads in my personal life as it is. We were wedding planning, we were moving, um, and I thought, okay, let's try it. New start, we're moving, new city. Let's see if I can cut my teeth with some PR agencies, see if I can add this to my business and see if I like it. And once I started working with agencies, it quickly became the rest of my business. Like I stopped doing the social media strategy, I stopped doing the copywriting, and I just fell in love with being able to help companies, help individual business owners, and help brands share their stories out there. Like we were doing campaigns for sports and fitness brands. I really fell in love with doing it for food and beverage brands and
Mhm.
events and stuff. Indie film and television was a really, really big one that I fell in love with too, and working with filmmakers. And as I branched out on my own to work as a publicist, I started seeing some of the similarities with storytelling between filmmakers and authors. And I actually
Mhm.
had a connection of mine who had been creating films and like web series for years and had decided he was like, hey, I'm adapting one of my properties into a graphic novel, and I think I'm finally ready to do publicity. Do you want to hop on this with me? And I said, yes, absolutely. And to this day, he is a client that I work with all the time. We've done 6 campaigns together. He's won awards. He's been featured in some major genre magazines, and he's looking to continue to, now he's working on a new short story collection, and his graphic novel series actually got some interest from Hollywood producers as well. So we're seeing
That's
like,
great.
hey, maybe an adaptation of his adaptation is in the works.
Oh, nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is then what the rest is history. Once you started working with him, just like the curtains opened and it just made sense to then do PR specifically for authors.
Yeah, yeah. I love working with authors because there's so much opportunity
Mhm.
regardless of whether they're writing a fiction book or a nonfiction book. And what
Mhm.
I learned pretty quickly is that although there's similarities between the two, there's also things that come naturally to nonfiction authors when talking about
Mhm.
their author brand and their journey as an author and why they
Mhm.
book that might be more natural to them than it is a
Mhm.
fiction author. And
Mhm.
really help my clients figure that out and
Mhm.
hone in on their zone of genius and really help them build up the confidence to recognize, like, hey, your book is a vehicle for
Right.
people to get to know you.
Right.
And in a world where readers have limited time, attention span, and money, they're going to go after the author in this that writes the same genre that you do because they know them. So it
Mhm.
becomes a question of like, hey, you're doing all this stuff on your own on social media. What
Mhm.
else can you be doing that's going to get your story out there to other audiences that you don't necessarily have to build yourself? That's
Mhm.
going to help you lay that foundation of, hey, I'm somebody in this space that you should be following, that you should buy from, and that, you should attend my events.
Totally, totally. So actually, let's address the elephant in the room. Because I remember when I was an author and like was learning what it felt like to put myself out there and had no idea what PR even meant. What and the words like public relations, what does that even mean? And what does that do, especially compared to like social media? And like what's the difference between like PR and marketing? And how would you, Lillian, describe that to someone who is totally new to this space?
Well, first of all, to kind of have that definition explained, PR is not social media and PR is not marketing, but they're all connected. And when you build a system that works, they all work to support each other to get your
Mhm.
books up there. So I want to clear that up first off.
Nice.
What PR is it's a communications process. And it's a communications process that allows you to do two things. Number one, share your story through the relationships that you build with
Mhm.
people and media that have their own platforms. I've been asked a lot over the years. It's like, "Hey, why would I wanna do that?" Right? Like, I only
Mhm.
have limited
Mhm.
time, limited energy, and marketing and PR is not my forte. Like, this is not what I'm in business for. And I say to them, I said, "Here's the thing about other parts of marketing, like social media, like email, and like even advertising.
Mhm.
All of that stuff is dependent on you coming up with content to share with your audiences, right? You're the main source. So your
Mhm.
audience gets to hear from you all the time.
Mhm.
And when you're trying to build an audience on these platforms, they need to hear more than, hey, buy my book. And
Yeah.
they also need to hear more than just, here's what's in the book. Here's, character art. Here's a book trailer. All of these kinds of things that traditional marketing and the
Mhm.
publishing industry says you
Mhm.
should do in order to build an
Mhm.
audience.
Mhm.
Why is that? Because at the end of the day, you build trust not just from what you have to say yourself to your audience,
Mhm.
but that trust builds when they see you out there being supported, being
Mhm.
shared, and being amplified by someone
Someone
else's.
else. Yeah.
So the key here is
Mhm.
when you build those relationships, whether it's a podcast, whether it's like an author or book focused magazine, right? whether it's a website that features a bunch of book reviews and they also do interviews and things like that for your books in your genre,
Mhm.
what you are telling people, the impression you're giving people is, I am being endorsed and supported, and there are people out there with platforms bigger than mine who have
Mhm.
spent years themselves building their own reputations as a trusted place that
Right.
their audiences can go to get the book reviews, right? To learn more about authors, to have the opportunity to maybe do live Q&A with some of their favorite authors
Right. Okay.
because they have spent years building their reputations as credible
Mm.
platforms that their audiences can go
Mm.
to get this information, to be what I call educated, captivated, entertained, and informed. You are
Mm.
hearing on that platform tells their audience, hey, Renee is an author I should be following. What she said
Mhm.
is really, really cool. I need to check out her books. Like, I need to subscribe
Right.
to her Substack. I need to attend her next book event, whatever it is. And that is the
Mhm.
power of being able to leverage publicity, because that's also high level trusted content that you don't have to create yourself. Someone else has created for you by
Yeah.
the virtue of just you having a conversation with them on their platform. And you can use that content however you want. The beauty of it too is that so much of that content, that media coverage, that interview, that live Q&A, whatever it is, that magazine article, it doesn't live on social. So what that
Mhm.
means is you can share it everywhere
Mhm.
in all kinds of different formats. Pull out quotes, videos, audiograms, audio clips, photos. You know, you could turn it into an article, turn it into a blog post, and it
Mhm.
helps
Mhm.
build up things like search engine optimization for you as an author and you as
Mhm.
a brand and for your books. And it also helps to introduce audiences outside of your own,
Mhm.
who you are, why
Mhm.
you do what you do, why does it matter, why they should read your books, and it humanizes you. You know, it allows you to build these human connections with potential readers to really introduce them to why your work matters. And
Mhm.
it also shows your audience, hey, it's not just me telling you to buy my books by giving
Mhm.
you all this stuff about the world that I've built and the characters and the themes and all of that. I have other people coming in and saying, hey, my book is worth reading. My story is worth following. And this is why it matters.
Mhm.
And this is why, you know, my book is a vehicle for you to get to know me and my story and why it's important to me that I put these themes or these characters or how I've weaved in different cultures into the world that I've built. And this is how you can learn about it from directly from me, the horse's mouth, before you even pick up the book.
Mm. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because 'cause I'm still learning PR myself, so this is very educational for me too, Lilian. And you said it so interestingly because yeah, like, I came from a background of marketing, like, that was what it was taught as, like, this is marketing, this is how you create a message that lands with the right people. But you're saying that PR is more of like it's like the OPI, the other people's influence, the person, the third party who's like who says so besides you, who you get to borrow influence from. And that definitely has yeah, like I mean, every time I'm selling something, I always have to quote someone else because it can't just be me saying it. Like who else says that this is true too? So I could see how PR is really powerful, especially for authors. So Okay, so that's very helpful. And I imagine so for a lot of the audience here, they imagine themselves naming lights, books in airport bookstores, helping tons of people, um, you know, all the whole shebang, TED Talks and all that stuff. And what would for someone who let's say that that's point B and their current point A is um they're just they don't maybe they just released a book and it's maybe selling like a few copies a month. What would you say, how does PR play into that dream vision for them to get them to that goal?
It's great when you have those goals.
Mm,
And I always coach my clients to be like, okay, if your goal, as an example, is to speak at a TEDx conference on stage
mhm,
within like 18 months to 2 years, let's say, let's take that goal and let's work backwards
mhm,
and look at where you are now. Do you have speaking experience? Do you have interview experience? Are you comfortable sharing your story on smaller platforms first? Because that's
mm,
priority one. So if you have no experience, you can't just go from 0 to 60 and expect that it's gonna be sustainable when you don't have the
mm.
systems and the strategies to back it up.
Wow, okay. Yep.
So what I always coach my clients to do is build it up first by looking at what what your story is, okay? Now, what are the smaller goals you can build towards that will get you to that larger goal?
Mhm,
So, are there industry associations that you could build relationships with to talk about why it's important to have interracial romances represented in fiction books? Are there podcasts, magazines, websites out there where they talk about sobriety, as one of
mhm.
my clients actually did. That was a story angle that we ran with for her cyberpunk sci-fi books, and why it's
Oh,
important
wow. Yeah.
to have that represented in that genre when most of what you see, the detectives are always drinking and smoking, right?
Sure.
She made the choice to turn that narrative on its head and talk about why sobriety is an important theme in her books and an important in her life as a sober creative.
Mm,
And that
mm,
led to her books being internationally distributed, translated
mhm,
into German. It just blew up
mhm,
because we went with a specific story angle that went, okay, what are your goals in terms of ones break it down, make it incremental within, 3 months, 6 months, a year. What are the smaller goals that you can build up to in order to A, get your story out there, B, get comfortable sharing your story, and C,
mm,
build up your confidence in a way so that you are solid and you know how to handle things like if they lob a curveball question at you, they
mhm,
lob a difficult question at you that maybe you don't want to answer or you can answer. How are you going to handle that? Building
mhm.
up your knowledge and your cadence and your confidence for stuff like that on smaller podcasts is always going to be the way to go
Okay,
because you do
gotcha.
not want to step out on stage in, a much larger platform. And I've had a lot of people come to me and say, "Hey, I've got no media experience whatsoever, but I want to get on the Tonight Show. Can you make that happen?" And I always say to them, I said, "The last thing you want, number 1, is to bank on something you're doing to go viral
Uh-huh.
and your system can't sustain it, or it brings in all of the wrong leads, the wrong readers for
Mm.
you. And on top of that, just because it's mainstream and they reach millions of people doesn't mean your audience is looking for someone like you there.
Hmm, right, right,
No,
right,
it
yeah.
has to line up with
Mhm.
where is my audience actually spending their time when it
Right.
comes to your goals? It's like, what are
Right.
they reading? What are they watching? What are they listening to? What kind of events are they attending? What are they
Mhm.
subscribed to? That's
Right.
giving them fulfillment. That's
Right.
getting the books they want to read in front of them. That's helping them, let's say, not maybe not solve a problem, but giving them the representation they so want in the fiction books that they've been reading. Where are they all going?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
if that's where your goals line up to, that's where you should be going.
Right.
So I
Right.
always coach my clients to build up that foundation and build up your reputation
Mhm.
as a well-known author before chasing the so-called big fish, because the big fish are going to be looking for the authors that have the media experience. They're
Mhm.
confident, they have the training, they have the audiences that they've
Mhm.
already built up, and they're not just relying on one thing to go viral, right? They're doing the speaking engagements, they're doing the book signings, they're doing author collaborations, they're giving back to different charities, right? All of these different things that help establish them as a leader
Mhm.
that these larger platforms are going to want to book as a speaker. They're going to want to interview.
You mentioned something really interesting, the leadership aspect. Um, because a lot of people who follow Spoken Hot Books, they imagine themselves in that position, on the Today Show or whatever. Not, I mean, and I've been there too, not realizing that that there are many steps before, like in terms of inner confidence and inner stability, like you were saying, sustainability. I like that word you were using. And yeah, and even if they do imagine themselves like, even if they were maybe in the background and they were still growing their business with their book, or they were, silently attracting leads from their book. Um, you mentioned leadership and you mentioned inner stability and inner confidence. And I just, there's been people I've been talking to who, when I ask, the whole point is so that you can step into leadership, because when you're an author, especially nonfiction, people are looking towards you. And so what would you tell someone? Um, I mean, like, leadership seems to be the goal, but for someone who's resistant to that feeling of leadership, or maybe they're like looking for a way around it or something, what would you tell them?
It's interesting you bring that up because a huge part of what I do in my coaching business as a person
Mhm.
also focuses on mindset. I put
Mhm.
all of that into my book when I published last year because I saw so many authors and entrepreneurs let the fear, the anxiety, and the imposter syndrome control what
Mhm.
they were willing to do or not do. And it would end up sabotaging the momentum they were trying to build
Well,
with the strategies they had in place. Even on social media, when it came to going live like we are now, or
yep.
even posting like a recorded reel, things
Right.
like that. So when I work with my clients on that front, I always ask them, ultimately, what are your goals for your book? Number one. Number
Mhm.
two, what is it about publishing this story, particularly around, memoirs where things can get personal and they do get vulnerable and things like that,
Mhm.
that makes you want to hide behind the book and
It's a
have
really
the
good
book do
question.
the talking
Mhm.
rather than have it be the vehicle for people to get to know more about you and who you are, right?
Right.
Why is it that when you've already taken that step to publish something so authentic, so vulnerable, and so real that now you want to hide,
Yeah.
right? So we
Yep.
dig deeper into the root causes
Mm.
of these limiting beliefs and what triggers them.
Yeah.
And I remind them that, for all the good that it does when it comes to building your audience and allowing you to develop a community of fellow
Mhm.
writers and authors in that, social media does not show you how these leaders you admire, these writers that have built 5, 6, 7-figure careers
Right.
off being best-selling authors, have had to build themselves up
So true.
internally when it comes to getting comfortable with sharing the story behind, "Hey, why did you write this book? And what do you want people to get out of it?" Right? And it really comes down to, you made a choice to write this book for yourself, yes, but also because you saw something missing in the marketplace.
Mhm.
You want people to resonate with this story. You want people to take away lessons that they can learn, whether it's from your fictionalized characters or from your own journey inside your memoir. You
Mhm.
want them to be able to resonate with your story and know that, hey, whatever it is you're going through right now, you're not alone because I've been there.
Right.
So if that is your ultimate goal, you have to ask yourself, how much faster could I get to global audiences all around the world and
Mm.
make that impact if I was willing to have a conversation with someone on their podcast? Now,
Right.
don't get me wrong. One opportunity does not make an international bestseller. It's
Mhm.
about developing that sustainable consistency to
Mhm.
get
Right.
more media opportunities, get in front of more audiences, and continue to promote those opportunities and that coverage the right way. And for my clients, a lot of what comes up is something along the lines of, oh, I can't share my story with a stranger on their platform.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I say to them, well, try reframing your perspective. This is your opportunity not to share your story with a stranger, but how can you expand your community? How can you expand your community of readers, of fellow authors, other people in the publishing industry that support you? And in that way, what is the common ground you
Mhm.
have with the podcaster, with the
Right.
freelance writer, with the magazine editor?
Right.
Do you love certain authors in the same genre? Right? When you follow them, did they say something about a book that happened to be your favorite and, hey, you love that book too? What is
Mhm.
the common ground that you can build with them to make the members of the media a part of your community? Because what happens when you do that? Not only does the conversation get more comfortable, and that's how
Mhm.
you build your confidence,
Mhm.
but you are opening the door to have more opportunities, right? Just because you book one podcast interview
Mhm.
with somebody on their platform doesn't mean you can't come back on and do a live Q&A. You come back on and
So
do a
true.
live reading. You can't
Right.
come back on and, you know, promote like your next book, or maybe, hey,
Mhm.
they're doing an author event, right? They're
Yeah.
working with
Mhm.
some other platforms to create an author summit, and they would love for you to be a speaker, right?
Right.
One opportunity can open the door to so many other chances to grow your author business and get more eyeballs on your books than just relying on trying to build your own social media audience.
Right. That's a really interesting point. Um, yeah, there's this like it's like, you go 1 inch and they'll take you a mile kind of effect. And I mean, I'm really loving this limiting beliefs conversation. Um, because I mean, people might see you, Lillian. and they're like, and you mentioned this, like they'll see like, wow, they're doing a Substack live and they're talking about so confidently about what they believe in and but I could never do that. And I had this book and I just can't do I think that's a really and I what is actually insane, Lillian, is because I did this. This was like my plight. I published a book that was not a personal brand book. I used a pen name. I was doing it for the money and I hid behind this veneer, this need to okay, like let the book do the talking, let the book make me the money. It can't be me and my soul and my personality being out there for everyone to see. And I do understand that sentiment of feeling so vulnerable, feeling like not being good enough. People are going to laugh at me. And in fact, there was also this feeling of if because no one in my family, and I'm half Chinese and half Indian. There's Asian values that are aligned with that. If I put myself out there, then I'm attracting attention to myself, and no one in my family does that. We were taught to not attract attention to ourselves, and there's a lot of layers to that, and it doesn't go away in just one podcast interview or just one try. And I remember having to go to Toastmasters over and over and over again for a year. And even then, I was like still hiding. So, I mean, this is so interesting. I mean, like, yeah, you mentioned the main limiting belief. It was like the hiding behind that the book can do the talking, that the book is the vulnerable thing and it'll do the talking. What are some other limiting beliefs that you see most commonly, especially for people who have like used part of their story and their experience as they put it into the book?
Yeah, it's interesting because to your point, like, first generation Chinese born Canadian over here, so I get it.
Mhm.
My
Yeah,
folks, super traditional, super old school, right?
right.
You
Mhm.
you you toe the family line, you do your job, you go home, that's it, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
So so I
Totally
totally
relate.
get it. And every author out there, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, business or not, you put pieces of yourself into your book.
Yep.
Like that in and of itself takes courage, right? Because you're talking about your experiences, even in a business book as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a business owner, what it was like having employees, right? And in a fiction book, it might be fictionalized, but there's characters in there, themes, locations, the world building, all of that that are inspired by stuff you went through. So all of
Totally.
that really
Yeah.
is vulnerable to begin with. So then it becomes like, okay, how do there's a lot of anxiety on how people perceive us, particularly like you and I being from traditional cultures where it's like,
Mhm.
we had it drilled into us. If you act this way in public, what's so and so gonna think about what your parents have taught you,
Oh my
right?
god.
That
Oh my
drilled into me growing up, so I
oh my
get it.
gosh, yeah. Oh my
But
gosh.
it also is a thing of, "Hey, wait a minute. The people that are going to pass judgment aren't your people. The people that are going to try and dissuade you from doing this are the people who have no experience doing it." That's why in business, they always say, "Do not, under any circumstances, take advice or life lessons from people who haven't been
Who
there."
don't do it. Yeah.
'Cause they
Wow.
don't know what they're talking about, right? Number 1. And number
So good.
2, it's this idea of what I've definitely seen with a lot of women of color is like,
No.
"Look, life is too short to be miserable. So how much longer do you wanna live your life being put into this box that tradition, culture, and even Western society, patriarchy has put you in because they said that's the best that you can do. How much longer do you wanna do that?" Right?
Wow.
And I always remind my clients that, hey, the people
Mm.
that resonate with your story, those are the people that matter. Those are your readers. Those are the people that are going to show up at your book signing. They're going to show up if you're speaking at an event. They're going to sign up for your newsletter. Those are the people that you want to find and build relationships with. Everyone else is not your people. So don't get caught up in things like, hey, my family and friends just unsubscribed from my newsletter. Well, here's the thing, they might support you, but they're not actually your ideal reader. And there comes a point where they're like, hey, yeah, I subscribed initially because I wanted to support you, but it's not really my genre or it's not really my thing. The
Mhm.
key is to not take it personally because 9 times out of 10, you are not going to find your ideal readers in family and friends. It's not going to happen. The people you want to reach are the folks that are out there listening to the podcast, reading the book review sites, going to, book festivals and author events and stuff, wanting to see who's out there as an author that I can meet, that I can learn
Mhm.
from, that I can have a conversation with. Maybe, like what's a workshop I can sign up for because I really want to learn from this person. So,
Yeah.
fear and anxiety is really, really big, but equally as big that can sabotage your
Mm.
momentum moving forward is frustration and impatience.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yes. Yes.
everything that you're building, right, as an author is meant to be long term business growth. There are no shortcuts, there is no instant gratification here. What you're trying to build is a long term business strategy that goes way beyond the 3-week launch window that the publishing industry has told you that's as long as your book's going to matter for. After that, you better work on releasing another one. Absolutely not. The clients I've worked with, I have gotten press for 6 months to a year after they have
Yeah.
published their books. Because you know what? When you do that launch, there's still going to be thousands of people who had no idea who you were when you
Right.
launched the book, right? Because
Right.
you didn't build that strategy to get in front of them. So even 6 months to a year afterwards, there is still opportunity for you to build that strategy to get in front of them by getting the reviews, by getting on different podcasts to get interviews done, being featured in magazines, all of those different things. Because at the end of the day, once the launch is over,
Mhm.
the audience that you're continuing to build is not going to care when you release the book. All they care about is it available and can I read it? And this is particularly true for my author clients that are like, hey, I'm releasing book 4 right now. And it's like, okay,
Mhm.
great. Let's go back and do the campaign for book 1. So
Mm.
we can
Mhm.
start from the
Mm.
beginning
Mm.
and lead readers through this journey of your
Mhm.
series so that they can get to
Mhm.
book 4 when it comes out.
That makes so much sense. Yes. I love that. I mean, this is all just reminding me because I was in Vancouver visiting my family, my Chinese family, and I was walking along the street, and you know how there are those little libraries where it's just like this like birdhouse, and you put little books in there, and you put and take and put and take, and there was this book in there written by a Canadian-born Chinese woman, and she had spoken about the mental illness in her Chinese family. And I had never seen anything like that before because I was like, this book that I found in a birdhouse type thing is finally making me feel seen, heard, not alone. For once in my 30 years of existence, I finally feel like someone understands me. And probably if I showed this to my mom and she was like, "Oh, that's kind of cute," whatever. But like for me, I was like, "This is like the book," and it's like there's going to be people who are just never going to understand it, but there are people that are like, "This is a godsend. Thank God you wrote this book. Thank God you put yourself out there. Thank God you continued to beat the drum, you know, put beat the hammer, tell people about what you experienced, what you wrote about, because there are people who need you in your story. And I'm just so glad that she marketed and promoted and shared, got that book out there, because without her, I probably would still feel like I was like alone. I mean, there is all these like tendrils and layers, but um it's just amazing that you do help authors with the confidence piece, because that is a huge thing. And appreciate that you mentioned that there are these authors who build these lucrative careers, but they have been building the confidence in private behind the scenes. So how do you, Lillian, you mentioned that you help them build this confidence, and what does that specifically look like in your coaching programs?
Well, it depends on the client, but a lot of it comes
Mhm.
down to brainstorming, to talking it out, to really
Okay.
like ascertaining. It's like, okay, what is this block around you sharing your story?
Okay.
What is it, where, how far deep down does it go? Is it related to your childhood? Is it related to your culture? Is it related to the fact that, hey, your family didn't talk about the difficult stuff, right? How can we reframe that as something that is worthy of being talked about? That you're not going to get egg on your face, that people aren't going to laugh at you. All of these catastrophic fears that you have are about something that hasn't yet happened.
Mhm.
So I reframe it with my clients and I go, feelings are not set in stone, feelings are not facts. So if something
Okay.
hasn't happened yet, right? Like
Uh-huh.
if you
Uh-huh.
if you have booked an interview and you are catastrophizing the outcome of it. You're like, "Oh god, like I'm going to go on this podcast and I'm going to freeze up and all this other thing." Positive outcomes are just as likely to happen.
Mhm.
If the negative is likely to happen, then so can the positive when you don't have any data to go on. If this is your first time doing it, this is also why I do media coaching with my clients. Let's role play. Yeah,
Mhm.
if they ask you why you wrote the book, what stories are you going to share with them?
Right.
If they ask you what the toughest part was about leaving out the stuff you edited out, what story are you going to tell them? Right?
Mhm.
If they ask you a curveball question
Yeah.
or like a difficult question, like they try to push you a little bit and to get you to
Mhm.
debut a sneak peek or a tease or something on their podcast and you're not ready to do that, how are we going to navigate this in a
Mhm.
way that's still going to help you build your authority, build your leadership qualities, and not affect the positive rapport that you're building with the person interviewing, right?
Right.
So I find that role playing really helps my clients as well. And a lot of what I talk about too is that as a publicity coach, like I mentioned before, just like you, came from the traditional culture, didn't talk about anything, thought that, hey, I could spend years just putting out client testimonials and reviews, and hey, I'm good. That tells people what I do. When in reality, it didn't give people a glimpse into like who are they actually getting when they work with me?
Yeah.
How is it like, what is it that how my approach is different from working with your typical PR agency, right? The
Yeah.
testimonials don't go into stuff like that. And I finally said, "You know what? Me silencing myself
Mhm.
doesn't benefit anyone. And if I'm going to be an effective coach, I have to show my clients how like what to do by leading by example." So
Right.
everything I teach my clients about how to navigate interviews, and
Mhm.
things where it's like, okay, what happens when a curveball comes my way? How did I deal with that? What happens when I get asked an off topic question, or maybe they ask something that like my attention slipped for a split second
Mhm.
and I answered it the wrong way. How do I recover from things like that? Everything I coach my clients on how to deal with that, I've lived myself. I
Mm.
use the techniques myself.
Right.
So, it's really a question of like, okay, in building up the confidence, what happened, like how you do that is through practice and repetition that's positioned the right way, right? And a
Mm.
lot of
Mm.
that is also about reframing perspectives, such as so
Mhm.
many authors and entrepreneurs have a tendency to overlook their own network. And what I
Mm.
mean by that is like, hey, you have fellow authors
Mm.
that have they do an Instagram live series. They have a YouTube show. They have a podcast. Their audience isn't huge, but it's an opportunity for you to get on there and get comfortable with having a conversation with someone you already know. There's your bonus. You already know them. So there
Right.
is a rapport there. There's a foundation there. On top of that, you may have, a lot of authors I know are part of writing groups that have retreats and stuff like that.
Totally. Yeah.
There is an opportunity for you to go, hey, can I practice something with you guys? Right? So there are ways that you can lean into your own community as well to get more comfortable with media opportunities and sharing your story just even organically, right? Even if it's not recorded to be shared on social or through email or anything like that. There's still
Mhm.
an opportunity for you to go, "Hey, I'd like to, maybe this sounds odd or whatever, but I'd like to practice this with you guys. Like, are
Right.
you game for that?" And that's
Mhm.
really what a lot of authors are missing because you built that community and you're a part of that community and those groups for a reason, right? You're there
Yeah.
to support each other when, you're going through tough times with the editing process, tough times with
Right.
publishing. You're like, "Ugh, my cover design looks awful," and, like, I don't know how to tell my cover designer how to fix it. Whatever it is,
Right.
that's what they're
Mhm.
there to support you for, and
Totally.
there are opportunities for you to build author collaborations too, right? The
Yes.
giveaways, the newsletter
Absolutely.
features, newsletter
Absolutely.
swaps, doing conversations like this. There's absolutely opportunities that you can support each other to get in front of each other's audiences too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I like how you mentioned the reps. Yeah, because like I mean, yeah, like reps is like the bread and butter, right? Like, because like some people will see like, wow, that you see that author that you so admire on the TEDx stage, and you think, wow, I wish that one day I could be like that. But they've been repping, they've been doing this, they've been skinning their knees, they've been falling flat on their face, they've been dealing with the anxiety for so long that after time, now they finally feel comfortable and okay. And they still are probably knocking their knees when they're on the TEDx stage. And it's just like you were saying, one step at a time. And yeah, you mentioned role playing, so powerful. To put yourself in those scenarios where you can't predict sometimes what they're gonna say. And like becoming that person that can think on your feet, that can still hold still paint the picture of yourself as the leader and the authority and the storyteller. Um, yeah, and I mean, that's what like I keep talking about. Maybe I should talk about Toastmasters a little bit more because um, if any authors who might be watching this later or watching now, if you've never done Toastmasters, if you've never, and Toastmasters, by the way, is a public speaking club. There are chapters all around the world where you join this group of people who are just there to practice becoming better public speakers, more confident, literally doing what you're afraid to do. And we're all here practicing the same thing, becoming less anxious, becoming setting the fear down. And you come up with you do like you can do like a impromptu speaking every day, every session. You can have a prepared speech. And so all of these are the same skills that you are practicing, whether you do Toastmasters or you do it with a PR coach, whether you do it with a marketing coach, author coach, whichever. I think so. One time I worked with Steve Harrison. We did this mastermind, and Steve Harrison was a he was Robert Kiyosaki and Jack Canfield's book marketer. He also does this kind of thing. Like, let's get you in front of the cameras. Let's get you in front of the journalists. What do you need to do to feel more comfortable on the inside? So, I love that you mentioned that there is going to be a non-zero time. In fact, it'll probably take longer than you think, where you're going to feel like you may never feel comfortable until you have that breakthrough, and all of a sudden you're thinking on your feet. All of a sudden you're doing the thing. So yes, love that, Lilian. So, we have a few minutes left, and I would like to talk about. You mentioned last time, so we've met before, and we've talked a little bit about some of the outlets that you've helped authors get into. Things like Cosmo, some other ones. Feel free to, share. But once they were in those outlets, and also talk about, like, for a lot of authors who may not even know how it works, like, what does it even look like to get into Cosmopolitan magazine? And then what? What did that do for the author?
Any outlet that you're trying to pitch, it comes down to you sharing your story in a way that's going to make them care. Because every
Mhm.
podcast host,
Mhm.
every magazine
Mhm.
editor, every website moderator, or whoever it is, what they want at the end of the day is to share with their audiences fantastic content that will educate them, captivate them, entertain them, and inspire them, right? So, in
Mhm.
order to do that, the central question you need to answer for these editors, these producers, these hosts, and writers is, why is my audience going to care about this?
Mhm.
Because
Okay.
what you can't forget is that all of these outlets are getting dozens, if not hundreds, of pitches a day,
Right.
right? So, what you want to do with your story is to close a perceived gap in
Hmm.
the content that they are currently sharing with their audiences. So, for something like Cosmo and Pop Sugar, a lot of entrepreneurs and authors have a tendency to overlook
Mhm.
platforms like that because they'll say things like, "Hey, it's too big. Hey, I don't think my story works there. Oh, I don't think I fit into any of the categories or whatever." But if you look a little deeper, you would learn that, hey, they have specific sections for Asian women, for
Mhm.
women of Latino heritage, for women that are focused on workplace struggles and juggling careers with their families, right? All of these different subjects. So when you look at that, it's like, okay, how does me sharing my story fit into that particular section of this publication? Like, I'll give you an example. My client who ended up in Pop Sugar and Cosmo,
Mhm.
she by trade was a relationship coach.
Okay.
And of course, Pop Sugar, Cosmo, they've spent decades talking to women about relationships and all of this kind of thing. So it's like,
Totally.
okay, what is the new angle we can use to get her
Yeah.
in there? And
Right.
in doing our research, we recognized this was pre-pandemic. It was 2018. This was not a conversation that was being shared about a lot. Was the issue of conflict resolution, communication styles, and how to keep the spark in your relationship once you've been together for a while, like once the honeymoon stage has passed, whether you're married or not. And what was unique with my client in terms of how she approached both relationships and grief was that she had personal experience in polyamorous relationships.
Mhm.
That was not being talked about
That's new for sure. Yeah.
in these
Exciting,
conversations.
interesting. We want to
Yeah.
peek in, kind of taboo. Yeah. It's like, ooh,
And it was like, okay, how do you handle all of the, conflict resolution and communication styles and all of that stuff already when it's so tough when you have two partners? Let alone, here's my primary partner, like my husband, and then here's my boyfriend, and here's his girlfriend. What do you do? Right? The
okay.
other
Yeah.
part
I'm super
that
excited.
she dealt with was grief. And grief hit her in a couple different ways because she had divorced her first husband once he came out as gay, but they stayed best friends over the years, only for him to later pass in a car accident. So
Wow.
it hit her in a
That's
couple different
multiple.
ways, and
Yeah.
it's like how that influenced how she approached things with her clients and the
Wow.
approach of writing her book as well, right?
Wow.
So we looked
Yeah.
at the really unique story angles of like what are what I call the magnetic golden nuggets of
Mm,
your story that they're going to want to latch onto and be like, "Oh, hey, we haven't heard this before." Or it's like, "Oh, hey, we featured something on this, but that was years ago. Like this is a new
right. And
perspective. Let's
fresh.
talk about this. Let's share, what why this is meaningful." And this was really like her going beyond her work and talking about her own personal lived experiences of like, "Hey, I went through this, so I get it. I know how hard it is," right? And these are areas where you would think it's like, well, counselors talk about grief all the time. There's a ton of relationship experts and everything. I mean, why are we still writing to Dear Abby and all of that stuff, right? In today's day and age. But there's always a new perspective that a particular publication and their audiences have never focused on. So, it's really about finding, as I say, one of the first things I work with on my clients is how do we pull out the magnetic golden nuggets of
Mm,
your story and be like, this is unique specifically to you. Like your
mm-hmm.
story at the end of the day is the one thing that really and truly belongs to you. Because
Totally.
the book that you're writing or have written, the genre is almost immaterial because there's thousands of people that write in the same genre. But what makes it unique is why did I include these characters? Why did I include these themes? Why did I include this story from my life in
Mm-hmm.
this? Why did I include this part of it? Not to get too personal because I'm still working on it, but I'm also, in addition having published my PR book, I'm working on some fiction
Mm-hmm.
like a bunch of adult contemporary romances plus a crime thriller. And in my first adult contemporary romance, the central theme in it is what happens when you take what is supposed to be a good quality and you take it to extremes
Mm-hmm.
and it starts to negatively affect your relationships, your health, your happiness. How does it impact you and does something like having integrity and keeping your word, is it really that important when it's making you miserable? Why did I
Oh,
put that
wow.
in there? Because that's how I was raised.
That's so good.
So that is a centralized theme in that book because that is how I was raised. And I
Yep.
saw the negative implications of what happens when you take it too far.
Wow. I, yeah. Um, yeah, we could talk. We could have a conversation about this. But yeah, it's so great that you, Lilian, clearly saw the magic golden nugget in that client's story because probably for her, she was like, this is something that happened to me. I don't want to think about it. I don't like thinking about it. I like shoving it down. Um, and usually it's those things that are like these big that crying on the bathroom floor moment that is actually the most relatable part of us, the thing that we're all looking for connection with. Like, oh my gosh, someone else, their husband came out as gay. Well, me too. I felt so ashamed by that, but that person too, the same thing. And um, it does sometimes take someone else to remind you of your own magic and remind you that your story is so powerful. And if, and just to remind you, and it takes some time to remind you, remind that you are so unique and your story is the magic. And that's why, yeah, it's like there's this spiritual element to getting comfortable with your own self and your own story, and these things that happen to you really were happening for you all along. And just having a coach like you, Lillian, to extract that and kind of hold up the mirror and like wipe the mirror and say, "You're amazing, and this is why you're magical," is so valuable. And Maya's on, so I can see why. So Maya's one of your clients, see why she sees the value in you, Lillian. Yeah, and I mean, when that fiction piece goes out, Lillian, I'm on it because I can see how many Asian Americans who, I mean, there's so many loud spoken Asian Americans, but there's also a ton of us that um are, we're used to just kind of like filing in line and doing the thing. And when someone can be the person to say what they really think and what they really feel and how possibly these Asian values no longer have been serving you, well, then there's going to be tons of us that are going to be like, thank God Lillian wrote this book and published it and is promoting it and sharing her story. Can't wait for that. Definitely beyond that.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I appreciate all of what you just said in regards to all of that, because it's also like reminding my clients of like, hey, at the end of the day, what
mhm.
all of these outlets want to know is not your entire life story.
Yep.
So don't feel like
Mhm.
you have to cram 30, 40 years into an hour long conversation. That's not what we're doing here. And the other part of it is that what, in terms of what they want to know in regards to, hey, how did you get from point A to point B as an author, right?
Mhm.
You get to decide what is personal and what is private and where that line is.
Right.
You at all times are in control of that boundary and where you want the narrative to
Mm.
go. All they
Okay.
do is ask the question. You can control how you want to answer it or not moving forward.
So good. Really great point. Yeah. And that's a great. I mean, I'm new to PR, and so for you to say that is like just like a reassurance check mark to know that at any moment the author is the one that's in control, and that's such a nice feeling of reassurance. Okay, so we have been at this for an hour. We have some awesome people on. Um, let's see if there have been any questions really quick. Let's see. We got okay, awesome. There's no questions in the chat right now. If there's any questions in the chat, oh, okay, so I gotta go. But feel free if anyone has any questions for Lillian after this, comment on the post that's shared after this. So this will be shared as a post in the Substack. So comment below. We'll get your questions answered. Lillian, where can we find out more about you? And we'll definitely put those links in the show notes.
Absolutely. You can always follow me on Instagram at Lilian Sue PR Coach, where I'm sharing stories of my clients and my own experiences doing publicity. You can also find me on Facebook, just Lilian Sue 23, and also join my Facebook group, Booked, Featured, and Paid. I do free live Facebook coaching on there, focusing on different ways to help you land the right kind of media interviews and speaking gigs for your business and to help you grow your author brand.
Amazing. Okay. We will get those links. That sounds really valuable. So we'll get those links and we'll put them in the show notes. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I learned a lot about it, about PR. There's clearly, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And there's still more to come. So thank you so much, Lillian. Thanks.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks. Bye. Bye, everyone.